Hi, I'm Jazzy Jordz, and you're watching Crack Your Career. Today, I'm going to tell you why it's important to learn how to tell your story, and how the way you narrate your own life helps you make better professional choices and highlight key points to recruiters. You've come to the right place. Welcome to Job Teaser. Have you ever asked yourself why you did something? I'm sure you have. We've all done it. Usually it happens after we've done something silly, like being mean to our crush, buying some shoes we totally didn't need and that were way too expensive anyway, or putting up a flat pack wardrobe without reading the instructions. We often wonder why we did something after it turns out to be a failure, or makes us feel stupid. But it's actually worth asking all the time, even when something turns out really well. It gives us a better understanding of why we did what we did, and helps us to see the cause and effect between our actions and their outcome. When we've done this, we become better at writing our own story, otherwise known as self-narration. Mark Savickas is the American behavioral science professor behind career construction theory. He defines self-narration as the ability to articulate a coherent version of our own life story. He also believes that language provides the words needed to form one's conception of ourselves and create a self-identity. Basically, learning how to tell your story helps you find the right words to describe and better represent who you are. But self-narration is about more than just describing. It involves linking up different elements of your life to create a coherent narrative. Spoiler alert, this has got harder to do over the last few decades. In times gone by, there was a linear quality to our life, and they followed a pretty clear path. Okay, boomer. The thing is that changes in society like digitalization, technology, and globalization have led to huge changes in our lives. The world has become less stable and predictable. Nowadays, it's much harder to predict our path in life. There are lots of options open to us. Making and justifying our choices is becoming less easy to do, and sometimes we even get trapped in the famous paradox, freedom of choice. In a nutshell, the paradox is that having too many options actually eliminates choice and can even drive us into a state of inertia. You get the idea. We've gone from a largely predefined, deterministic script to a more individualistic approach with our lives. All our stories are becoming increasingly unique, differentiated and differentiating. It's no coincidence that businesses are saying atypical candidates will be the norm in the future. This is why it's so important you can tell your story. Another thing is that two apparently similar careers can be presented really differently. You've probably noticed this before when two friends tell you the same story. They won't do it the exact same way because they place different importance on different parts, and this is what gives the story its zing. It's the story you tell, also the way you tell it, that says something about you. To sum it all up, self-narration lets you get a better understanding of your past choices and reduce the stress around your future options because you know yourself better. It creates logical links between different parts of your career so that you can narrate and justify them more clearly. Once you've mastered this, you can really stand out from the crowd. Learning to tell your story is not only important because it helps you get to know yourself, it also reduces your anxiety about making choices and helps you win over recruiters. The question we need to figure out now is, how do we do it? We need to use 3 key methods: introspection, third-party evaluation, and for interviews, STAR. So let's start with introspection and person-to-person interactions. And bear in mind that there are multiple techniques for every method I'm going to tell you about. Introspection really means just taking some time out to check in. The idea is that we examine our own thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and behavior to get some perspective and to understand them better. It might also mean clarifying your preferences and identifying what you like, don't like, and why. When you understand who you are and your inner workings, you can make better professional choices. To achieve this, the first thing you need to do is set out what values matter the most to you professionally. In other words, you're defining the context for your career development. For some people, that'll be organizations that work to combat climate change. For others, it'll mean avoiding businesses that make everyone meet for drinks on a Thursday evening. You have to listen to the same colleague tell you boring stories every week. This one, try it. See what happened. The second thing you need to do is identify your strengths and the skills you'd like to develop. That might be creating a good team atmosphere, leadership, methodological thinking, or being super creative. The third thing is answering the question, what do I love doing? There are loads of other key questions you should ask yourself. Like, what experiences at work did I like the most? Why did I want to do that internship? What did it teach me? What would be my best work-life balance? How do I want to develop? To answer these questions, you can use our Marco and Freya resources. They're free, obviously. Marco helps you pinpoint what you're interested in, and Freya identifies your professional values. Once you've done the test, you'll get a fine-tooled summary of your career profile, as well as a list of the types of jobs that would suit you best. Congrats, you've completed the introspection part of your development. You deserve to chill for a moment. Here's some ASMR. Once you've got your answers to these questions, the next step is to represent them visually. 50% of the information our brains receive is visual, according to an article by MIT. By using a visual to represent the questions we've asked ourselves, we're able to scrutinize them better and put them into perspective much more effectively. There are lots of ways you can do this, like a diary or timeline. Today I'm going to use a timeline as an example. I was inspired by the lifeline concept by academic Pamela Ebrod. Here's how. Draw a horizontal line across a sheet of A3 paper. Write your date of birth on the left-hand side and today's date on the right. Then you make your timeline. That means your education. So let's say I went to business school. Your work record. We'll say I worked in PR in the art industry and marketing for a fashion designer. And then your life outside work. So I play basketball, for example. Put your positive experiences above the line and your more negative experiences below. So your judgment or perception of the experience will determine how high or low it is on the page. So I know you're going to think, wow, he put basketball really high. How come he didn't try out for the NBA? Oh, that's why. The aim of the timeline isn't to show your performance. It's more to show the importance you placed on an experience. For example, basketball helped me develop skills like teamwork and competitive spirit. The important thing now is translating your experiences into skills. A bit like I've been doing with basketball. That's the next step you need to do to get to know your professional identity. Skills can mean lots of different things. Work psychology professor Claude Lévy-Laboyer, so French, sums them up like this. He says that your skill set is a dynamic combination of your knowledge, hard skills, and soft skills within a specific context. For basketball, I put down teamwork and competitive spirit, which are soft skills. Could have also spoken about predicting what's going to happen next. Matches have helped me figure out the chances of things happening. And that's also a knowledge-based skill. My last job was with a fashion designer. I wasn't really a fan of the management style there. They were always on my back, but more importantly than that, it didn't look more than one step ahead. It did teach me, however, to be reactive and apply a certain amount of rigor to my work. And I learned how to use a coding software program called Sublime. So overall, even though I know that kind of business isn't for me, that didn't make it a bad experience. I took a lot of positives from it. Now it's your turn to reimagine your professional and personal experiences, your education and so on, using those three perspectives: knowledge, hard skills, and soft skills or personal and interpersonal qualities. When you're doing this introspective work, it's also important you understand what other people think about you. Interpersonal interactions are another way of getting to know yourself better and telling your story. It's pretty straightforward. Just start by asking other people what they really think about you. Because sometimes how we see ourselves is affected by biases. But others can help us get a more objective perspective. And these should be constructive, of course. You're not supposed to come away feeling upset. Put it this way, if you had a bad breakup with your ex, probably don't ask them first. Right, let's get down to business. How do you tell an impactful, effective story about yourself in interviews? What you need is a simple 4-letter method that recruiters love. It's called the STAR method. Each letter stands for a step. S is for situation, T is for task, A is for action, and R for result. You can use each of these steps to structure and showcase your professional experience. Situation. Start by explaining the situation, which means the work context you found yourself in. Task. Next is your main role and the objective you were given. Action. These are the specific actions you took to fulfill the different aspects of your role. And result. Last but not least, you'll talk about outcome. And if you've got any figures to back them up, that's even better. Let's take a real life example. My life. Fascinating, isn't it? When I started my internship, that iconic piece was losing a lot of business. My role was to re-energize sales. So I did some market research and studied our customers. Using the conclusions we drew, we changed the way we talked about the product, created a capsule collection with a new color scheme, and rolled out a social media campaign aimed at 18 to 24-year-olds that used our new branding, including a landing page. Thank you, Sublime. 6 months later, sales were up 27%. Get the idea? To help you prepare, you can write down a list of situations based on your past experiences, focusing on the things recruiters often want to assess, like teamwork, independence, analytical capabilities, team leadership, negotiation, self-assessment, and so on. Yes, you heard that right. Self-assessment. STAR is also a great way for recruiters to see how you think about and analyze what didn't go well in your past work. If you can stand back and look at causes, you're demonstrating your introspective skills, and recruiters will see someone who's ready and willing to improve. In our test and learn culture, they can't ask for more. Remember that STAR is also used by recruiters too, so you need to be able to recognize STAR questions, like, tell me about a time when, give me an example of, describe a situation where you, have you ever, what do you do when? If you hear wording like that, you'll know what to do. Bit like when you hear the first few notes of your favorite tune and you're in a bar, it means it's time to party. Now it's time to take down the set. Yo, crew, who's got the instruction manual? Guys?